Welcome to the final episode of this series. Travis, would you like to inform the viewers what has occurred?
I have put in my official surrender.
Yes, this will not be coming with a severance package, just so you know.
Oh.
And so let's highlight what prompted the surrender first. Travis can see my screen for this one, because we're at the end here. What prompted your surrender, would you say?
Mainly the invasion of Australia and the eventual taking over of Egypt.
Yeah, so this is what Australia looks like, by the way. I took Canberra, and because Australia is a minor with no backup capital, there really isn't any way for it to keep living. So after this turn, I also killed the unit that was here, the HQ, because I wanted to have a holdout in case you decided to keep fighting me for Australia. Also before I decided to message you and try to make a diplomatic deal, which is what prompted your surrender to begin with. This guy I battered a little bit, but I didn't go too far because I knew he would just get deleted next turn anyway. I just wanted to make sure. I don't know. I was just being safe, I guess. What made this possible was the fact that you only had a fighter on here. And it's funny, my whole plan was initially to take Sweden. That was Sydney. That's my initial plan that I had. But I thought you would actually have this pretty protected, Sydney. And so I thought, well, shit, I'm gonna need to go for like maybe Brisbane or up here instead. But then I saw like Americans start appearing like right here. You could see some of my fleet I had in the area.
Yeah.
I know I don't think you were 100% sure where my ships are, but this was where like most of the fleet was. Some of it had come back up here. There was more movements that were going to happen. I had to get your sub out of the way to allow my transports to get out of here. So that's,
yeah, I thought most of it was still up there.
There was like 3 in this region right here, but I sent them down. There was also 3 right here, and there was even 1 over here by New Guinea. I had been doing a lot of transporting like that, actually. I'm sure there might be more somewhere, but there was. So this is a funny thing. So let's talk about the recent events first, because I find it so crazy. So you were actually coming down here with your fleet.
Yes, pretty much the whole United States Navy was right around Marshall, like maybe a little bit to the southwest of Marshall.
So right here.
A little bit more to the right. Or, well, a lot more to the right.
So south of Gilbert?
A little bit north, and then pretty much right around there, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's southeast.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, still, though. So, in my past couple turns, I've been rushing this invasion because I felt like I was on a timer. I was running out of time. I was actually trying to time it for the winter initially. I slowed down when I got to the Coral Sea and ran into your other ships. But what encouraged me to do this was actually your invasion of the Marshall Islands right here. You see, I didn't have defenses on these ones, but you see around everywhere else, I had some defenses.
Pretty hefty defenses too.
Yeah, I was not sending garrisons because I knew they wouldn't last, so I was wanting to send corps. The thing is, I've been terrible this whole game about min-maxing, like moving the special forces away to invade stuff while also replacing with corps. I've been terrible about doing that while also setting up my invasion of Australia and setting up India, which I was actually getting ready to start moving into very soon here. I have more armies coming.
I would have actually felt really confident about the defense of India. Like, I built India up a lot.
Did you have air power to defend against mine? That's kind of the big thing.
Yes. Well, I had like I think I had 2 planes. It may have just been 1 fighter though.
Yeah, because that would be a big thing, is my elite experienced armies going in. That was finally getting started, whereas this is what China looked like at this point. You see, most of my troops are gone.
Yeah, I've pretty much, I mean, you can even see it with the amount of troops I have left. I had like 2 more that spawned in on the capital. I didn't even attempt to pronounce that name.
I mean, yeah, I usually mess it up, but I think it's a Rumchi.
Ramunchi. I don't know.
I would be messing up as Uramuchi, but I'm pretty sure it's Urumchi. At least if I pronounce it like it, if just as phonetically as I can with my dialect. But yeah, this is what China looks like. Even though I told myself the whole time I wasn't going to overinvest in China, I did overinvest in China for a lot of this. So I wasn't ready for Pearl Harbor, I wasn't ready for the invasion of Australia, and my Pacific defense wasn't ready either.
It don't look that bad, though.
This is the Kwajalein Corps. Look at the name. I even named it, the Kwajalein Corps. It was one fucking turn away from getting there. You got there so on time, it's hilarious. I had someone else picked out for Mahuro, I don't know how to pronounce that one as well. I don't know where that was. This is what was defending Tokyo as well, you know, with your little... I know you mentioned you initially had the idea to bum rush Japan.
Yeah, more so from the north instead of directly on Tokyo.
There would have been a free HQ and I think like 4 free cores that would have spawned as well. These guys were intended to head out eventually. And I was going to send this guy out soon too. See, he was the Midway Corps. I know, I put these guys on the border of the Soviets. I think you saw them though, right?
Yeah, I saw that one specifically.
Yeah, and I had this guy and someone else just sitting down here for the longest time, and every turn I was like, oh, I'll operate them next turn, I'll operate them next turn, I'll operate them next turn. But then I kept shifting more MPPs into getting my special forces and my Navy upgrades and reinforcements ready for Australia and getting cores up ready to go here, but also to defend the DEI and other places. So I kept not operating until eventually I was like, oh, let me just force march. But we were getting to the point where I was just like, oh, this front is never gonna open. I even had a core up here at one point that was...
I did also,
yeah, this one was also here for that, but eventually I was like, nah, I need that for the Pacific. It's right here right now. I named it the Truck Corps. These armies, I have the Australia Expedition Army, Australian Army. These were gonna head out to Australia along with an HQ to reinforce all those special forces because I knew I would need a defense after. And I was really betting everything on Australia, but you were too, as we learned.
Yeah.
So both of us just bet everything on Australia. You see, I still had a lot of special forces left over from the invasions. Look how not defended the DEI is.
Yeah, I would have definitely been able to take Batavana.
Batavia.
Yeah.
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 This is, I did have more incoming, like there's one on Sower Baja, that was new. I also had 2 Thai corps coming at the expense of the DEI, because I was going to have one defend Bangkok, and the other was going to defend Rangoon, so I could move these paratroopers and just free up some units around here. I've been seeing this shit, like, the whole time, and it's been annoying. And then I saw this American one, I was like, what the fuck?
That was the one that actually spawned in Australia.
Ah, you moved it pretty far. It's like, what the fuck's an American doing by Burma?
Yeah, so something important to note, if you go to your left a little bit, you see the coast of India.
Yep.
I was planning a pesky naval invasion straight into Bangkok.
Honestly, I saw that coming. I saw that coming. When I started seeing more ships here, I was like, oh, he's gonna naval invade somewhere here. I was like, should I actually try and defend that? I was like, I think the Thai corps will be enough. I'll just leave this army here for now, and it should be fine.
And I also kind of wanted to lure you out with convoy raiding that. Maybe see if you'll bring a couple ships up. Because a carrier and a battleship did actually spawn in India.
Yeah, I know the forces you can get over here is the UK. So that's why I know the forces the Allies get. I know the forces the Axis get. So I've been operating my fleets, very much in a kind of decisive battle doctrine. You know, the doctrine that Japan did that the naval leader guy said, oh, well, that's literally never won a war for anybody ever. We shouldn't do that. So I went with that because I figured it doesn't matter. America has too many ships. The UK has too many ships. If I don't have everything in one place, I can't accomplish anything.
I actually did a similar thing. I don't have the map open, so I can't really see, but I split the columns into 2. I know I told you a little bit about this. but one of those was more south of Hawaii, or well, where we were just looking earlier, and one was a little bit more towards west. And it was two giant clumps of, like, one had one carrier, one had two carriers, like three battleships, and yeah, it was a death stack of.
Yeah. That's what I knew, is that America, UK had too many ships, and as Japan, I couldn't really afford to reinforce it, because even as a pretty successful Japan, I was only earning, like, still about 350, 360 MPPs a turn or so. The reason I have 403 is because of plunder from taking something over. We could look at MPPs. MPPs collected income, Japan. Yeah, well, actually, it just reached like 400, but some of this recently has been from plunder, from little tiny nations falling. Still, like, I've been working with like 300, like the entire playthrough, basically.
Damn, yeah, that sucks.
Compare this to America, who's up to 900, and you see why I was so sure in your capabilities.
Yeah, that's quite juicy there.
That's not even a comparison. Every turn, you can afford, like, oh god, 2 fully upgraded carriers, and I can't afford 1. And look how many fronts I have to cover, whereas you're kind of free to do whatever you want. You see why I've been telling you this whole playthrough that you're more capable as the allies than you think you are.
Yeah. But you also have the more strategic brain than me.
Which is why I was thinking about this as well. Even the UK, like the UK has been earning roughly Japan's amount this entire time. The Soviets has been losing it, but almost roughly 800 at their peak. That's crazy. Germany, where's Germany? I don't see, there it is. I'm looking for a swastika. Where's my swastika? Germany's only like now past 600 recently. And then Italy has been working with 100 the entire playthrough.
Damn, at that point, just let Germany take over Italy.
Yeah, this is why I've been saying the whole playthrough, I know you couldn't hear it, that India is actually more useful than Italy. Because they are, look at this.
Yeah, at a lot of that time between June 40 and 41, I was stockpiling a lot of it to actually get, like, I got 2 HQs now, I believe. I got around 6 or 5 units where, you know, Japan and Burma was in that little corridor right there.
Yeah.
Then I've been moving some west because, well, you know, you're taking over Iran. Yeah.
And so, yeah, India is more capable than Italy. This is why I didn't really have any hopes of Italy. So, and you see, this is what was pushing into Iran here. But there was also the Romanians were about to, or no, these are the Hungarians were about to head down there as well. It was like a coalition push. I was sending the not Germans that way.
Yeah, I noticed that Romanian cavalry.
Yeah,
especially
the cavalry were funny. We'll talk about that in a minute. Now that we've talked about recent events, let's kind of like jump back to the beginning for things that happened and kind of go over what happened, you know, what we talked about in the earlier discussions we had, the earlier summits, and then what actually happened. So, you know, 39, Poland went as it was. I did my early invasion of the Low Countries into France, and I know you were trying to make some deals with me. You were thinking like, hey, you were trying to figure out if I was going to make Vichy or not, which I did, and there wasn't too many surprises there, if I recall.
Yeah, that's when I was still anxious about a potential Operation Sea.
Yes, and I remember I teased you by putting my paratroopers up here. Mm-hmm. And for a while, you actually appeared to believe I was going to do a sea lion, which I never had any intention to do. How long did the paratroopers fool you, by the way?
For quite a while. I was mainly concerned about a combination of naval forces and paratroopers. So that's why I put like 2 fighters up there. Of course, I had a carrier around to also help out with air.
And you were patrolling here every single turn.
Yes, I wanted to know exactly when you were potentially going to hit the amphibious invasion button.
Yeah, but I never did, and I never had any intention to do so. I never even planned to stage like this deception, but your focus on a potential sea lion is what encouraged me to send one up here. The other one was preoccupied with the invasion of Malta, but I eventually sent him up when the time came. But when did you kind of realize that I wasn't going to do a sea lion?
Definitely with the heavy push into the Soviet Union.
Oh, so no, oh, it took that long. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
damn.
mean, obviously, my I started to have doubts after waiting so long.
Yeah.
But definitely once the invasion of the USSR happened, I know there was no way you were planning on it.
Yeah, that was kind of the goal. I just wanted to distract you once I saw your attention was there, and it seems like that was a success. The rockets, how annoying were these rockets for you?
It was obnoxious. I couldn't like bomb them or anything. But it wasn't too bad. I only lost like a handful of MPPs every turn. Now, if it like damaged my units, that would have definitely made me mad.
I was really testing them out. I didn't really know how they worked. I have them pretty upgraded too. I only had 2 the whole time. I could get a 3rd one. If I could go back and do this again, I wouldn't even have invested in these. They were good as to like eat away at your morale a little bit, but the damage they do strategically is not actually that high. And they didn't work the way they said they would in the manual. The manual said that as their research went up and their range extended, then hitting things at a shorter range would do more damage, but I never observed that, I don't believe.
Are you able to actually move them around, or are they only stationary?
Yeah, I move them around. They don't move very far, but I can move them around. They get like 2 action points. I had already attacked with them this turn, though.
Yes.
I was just planning to... They're cheap to operate, so I was going to operate them whenever you did D-Day, if you got that far. Which, actually, you said you planned to. Let's talk about that. You said you planned an early D-Day.
Yes, you don't see it right now, but there is a shit ton of American troops pretty much where that sub is in the middle of the Atlantic, a little bit north of that.
Here?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw the Canadians and stuff getting in their boats and starting to head east.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it was probably not going to be alone, so I didn't bother trying to go for it. I just went for the raiding. Yeah, you've had some fun time with my subs too, as I'm aware.
Yeah, that definitely started to drive me crazy after a little bit.
And then you did your whole fucking blockade just around all of this, which was really effective because I had focused all my bombers on the Soviets. My plan was to go as heavy on the Soviets as possible.
Well, that definitely worked.
It does appear to have, yeah. But eventually I moved some medium bombers away to scare you away from here. And as I saw this turn, finally being able to move a submarine around here, I see you've kind of moved away and given me a path in and out, finally.
Yeah, mainly because, like, when I said all of the United States Navy was in the Pacific, I'm not exaggerating. All the British troops are going to go pick up those American troops. So technically right now it's almost undefended besides, like, 2 destroyers.
What is?
The big chunk of American troops, but those ships would have been able to make it next turn anyway.
Oh yeah, my navy was just still chilling over here. I hadn't really reinforced anything. I hadn't really done any upgrades. I hadn't added anything new to my navy. The submarines were all just kind of included, and I only lost 1.
By the way, very early into this game, I had almost like my bum rush of Japan idea. I had an idea to take all of the French Navy, since, France was going to die anyway, and bum rush your entire Navy. Do you think that would have worked?
That would not have been possible because you wouldn't have been able to pass through here because Denmark was neutral.
Not even with that. Oh, yeah, I guess that's true. Damn.
This is neutral Denmark territory. You wouldn't have been allowed. So you would have piled up here, and I would have seen that, and then probably bombed the shit out of it.
Yeah.
Or just left it alone because I would have been safe.
At least it's just French people.
I did see you were very aggressive with the French early on, which is actually a little bit of a headache to me. If I show you some stuff I was purchasing, I actually have the German carriers that have entered production.
Yeah, I can't remember if I ever asked you, but I was curious if you did actually go for the Led Zeppelin decision at the start of the game.
I didn't. No, actually, I took the battleship. But I only recently queued up slightly apart these 2 carriers because I planned for a 44, like mid to late 44 Sea Lion.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of my goal. And I was going to use this partly as a way to accomplish it. I was gonna get the Navy going. I was gonna give it some air. I was gonna get a fuck ton of air myself. We have the maritime bomber finally being built. The one maritime bomber that was coming, and I was gonna put it like over here, the maritime bomber with this fighter. Which one is this? The Africa fighter, yeah. And get the Navy kind of out here with the assistance of maritime bomber and the fighters here. And then I was gonna have like the medium bombers over here, the tactical bombers right here with more fighters, as I would then move troops amphibiously short range across the strait, and I was gonna have long range forces like special forces going to the north while assisting with my paratroopers.
Mm-hmm.
That was gonna be my plan.
Sounds like a pretty solid plan.
Whereas you had your early D-Day planned. In addition, I know you were about to get Portugal, you had 90% here, and you said you were also going to try to get Spain to join you.
Yes, though in hindsight, I don't think it would have really helped with the initial invasion, which I kind of started to discover that as, we're getting closer and closer to June. But yes, I still wanted to befriend them, especially to have extra troops guarding, France and helping with the invasion of that.
Yeah, so diplomacy-wise, that would have been very difficult, because Spain is special. Where is Spain on this list? In that, you're limited, you can only, it doesn't really tell you here, I think, but you can only put 3 chits in them in total. No, like, you can't really put any more in them. It's for the Allies and the Axis to represent Franco's reluctance to actually really enter the war on either side. And seeing as they were already leaning towards me, this would have been pretty easy to counter. I could have just, like, put my own chits in, but it would have gone so slowly anyway. I wasn't really worried about that. I was worried about you invading Spain, actually. Like, I thought you were gonna get Portugal to join you, land here, and then invade Spain.
I was mainly going to use Portugal for Operation Torch.
Hey, so we were gonna have a torch.
Yeah, though it would be very late 42, if not early 43.
So that would be shortly before your projected early D-Day then.
Correct.
That's interesting timing. As you see, my Italians were preparing. I had some Italians showing up here to get ready for that.
I just realized this whole time you couldn't even go and defend Western Sahara because, you can't go through all that
no,
territory.
it's neutral Vichy at the moment. I was tempted to get them to join me so I could set up a defense, but I decided not to.
Yeah, just Italy needs all those MPPs in Germany right now.
Italy was, look, like I mentioned to you, Italy wasn't defending the homeland. There was only 3 garrisons there, only because I didn't really have a reason to move them. Yugoslavia was defending all this. I bought this Yugoslavian HQ, for example, and the rest was all Yugoslavian cores that I've been slowly trickling MPPs into.
Mm-hmm. Is that all of the Italian Navy right there?
There's a little bit more here, and then the subs.
It's not really as big as I thought it was. I mean, it's a relatively moderate fleet, but I thought it was going to be like a shit ton.
It's big enough to deal with France, but yeah, you got a battleship that could have been a carrier, a battleship, heavy cruiser, destroyer, light cruiser, and sub. It's pretty decent. For Italy's size and MPPs, yeah, it's pretty decent. It's exactly what you'd expect for a navy that's designed to counter France without France's resources.
Fair enough.
That's pretty much what it is. It's big enough to give the Brits a bite if they do come into the Mediterranean. And I made sure to put a maritime bomber here as well, as you may have seen.
Damn, that has some decent range.
Oh yeah. I mean, it could go all the way up here, like, and then all the way over here, up here. I think I actually did end up using this against some of your subs at one point.
Yes.
And then you retreated them, and then they never came back. That I saw.
Yeah, it's still at Gibraltar.
Yeah, I had these sub traps were so annoying for you, I recall.
Yeah, I knew about the one to the west already. I think I even attacked it a couple times, but
yeah, you did.
Yeah, that's why I was just waiting for actually all my destroyers to get down here when I eventually did Operation Torch.
Yeah, because you would have needed to get past here to properly do Torch, where you like go for the capital and whatnot.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you would do it historically, or if you would just go from west to east.
I was mostly thinking west to east, but if I could have actually invaded the capital in one turn, I probably would have.
I planned to actually fight you navally over that, considering I have pretty good range with the maritime bomber, and the navy's just sitting there. I planned to fight you over that.
Yeah, that's mainly why I was bringing the whole British fleet to that location, to kind of be able to actually take some hits and continue to assert dominance.
Yeah, that would have been interesting. I was definitely going to fight you over that, though, and deal what damage I could if you went for Algiers. If you went for the west, I was just going to leave it be. Pretty much. And then over here, this is actually roughly, I think it's like 1 hex back, but this is where I got that battleship earlier that you ran into.
Yeah.
The sub, yeah. And then I eventually moved this back, healed it, and then kind of moved it back, but just 1 hex back. But that was still there the whole time. This is what the Italian front looks like, by the way.
Yeah, that's mostly what my intelligence was telling me.
I wasn't sure how like thick to make this, but so my plan with the Italians up front was I completely overestimated them at the beginning. I was like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to take all of North Africa with Italy. It'll be easy. And then I realized, wait, this isn't going to be easy. And then I started narrating like, man, we need a plan for potentially losing North Africa. And that's when I started shifting all the Italians down there. And then I started seeing some success by doing that. This is my logistics line to keep this all supplied, by the way. This was very costly. It's 3 out of like 4 of my HQs. And then I pushed this far and I was like, okay, well, I've secured quite a bit that I could just hold here and then have Germany do the rest, because I didn't send Rommel here. And this was, I planned for this to die. We talked about that. You were 1 turn away from like being able to slaughter this because of my supply until you kind of gave up and walked out.
Yeah.
Whereas the Germans were heading down here and they were going to be the ones to finish off this from the east with just massive air power. I was going to basically send the tactical bombers down here while they didn't really need to do anything else at the time.
The one interesting thing, I guess, your line of sight, you cannot see, you can see the Sudanese HQ down below, towards the Sudan border.
Yeah.
But there is a single other Sudanese corps there that had really low supply. I was really anxious that if I moved that to better supply, you were going to encircle me.
I already knew it was there. Because I had pushed up there before. I intentionally pulled back and then kind of went half and half because I was really expecting a torch to happen soon. So I was preparing for that. And so I'd been moving these troops for like half a year now to get them over here.
I did want to bring up, in one of the earlier summits, you asked me if you thought the Baltic Agreement was a good idea. I did want to ask you what your thoughts were on that.
Well, for me, I think it was a great idea. Well, the whole reason why I wanted this and threw this into whatever deal was because I wanted to narrow the front. Because I knew my troops would be higher quality than yours. And I knew that I had to slaughter your troops in addition to taking capitals based on my experience with the PvE to actually get a surrender anyway. So I wanted to line them up because I didn't want to spread out my units because I also knew you would have way more units than I did. I mean, look how thin this front line actually is. This has been spread out the entire time from like here down to here, this whole war. And this had units going into it, you know, with like the Romanians, the Hungarians, I've been getting more units, etc. It's been a very thin front. I have not had the number advantage, so I wanted to line you up in a hallway so I could just kill you one by one without needing to risk being flanked. So for me, I thought this was a pretty good deal, this agreement we had here.
Yeah, I would have also agreed it was a good deal if it wasn't stupid with my defense plan.
The reason, I think partially what I used to try to scare you is that I could actually annex Lithuania with an event if you did not accept this. I don't know if you recall that.
No, I just know that you can take Memel. Or, well, no, that was before.
More than Memel. Yeah, no, I told you about it at the time. This was like a year ago, basically, in real life. I could have annexed this with an event, and I told you about that. And this was tossed on to the agreement that you offered me about making Norway neutral. Which eventually, you know, I kind of sat on that for a couple turns. I didn't know what to think. Eventually, I was like, okay, sure, but let's also throw in this one, and let's throw in this as well.
Yeah, I still think the whole, how much MPPs are you actually getting from Norway? Are you able to see?
It's a decent amount. I did the math earlier in the playthrough, but between Norway and Sweden, this is kind of how it goes. At the peak, it goes up to 70 between the two of them.
Then I guess that ain't too bad. I mean, with all the USSR, it's pretty much nothing at this point anyway.
Earlier, it's a big deal. Right now, it's not as big a deal, but yeah. If I annexed it, this would actually lower, especially in the winter. I think it's the Sweden line that is just, one of these is just like, I think it's the Sweden line, is not active during the winter at all, which is why it kind of goes down so sharply like that.
Interesting.
So, and if I took this, I could readjust this here, and it also moves most of these MPPs here, which means they're not active during the winter. I accepted this because it was, in my head, the best way to get the most MPPs in the short term, because my idea was to be as strong in the short term as possible, because I figured if I could wipe out the Soviets, then I wouldn't lose. In the long run, like even if I lost Italy, even if I lost Japan, I just wouldn't lose if I could take the Soviets. Because then Germany would have all these MPPs, they could focus everything on one front, and then Japan would also get an event to get half of this. Basically Eastern Russia, like east of the Urals, I think. And that would get rid of all partisan requirements as well from the Soviets. So I could not have to have my garrisons there. And then, you know, Japan would finally get more income. They would actually have like 500 plus at that point with everything I was taking, and maybe stand more of a chance. Not fully a chance, still no chance against a focused America, right? But with that plus Germany able to focus on one front, I thought I could definitely get, like, at minimum, right, a tactical victory at the worst.
Yeah, I definitely think that would have probably been the best case for me. Well, not for me, but, you know, actually being able to take Italy and Japan, but I don't think I would have been able to take Germany.
Yeah, this is why I actually ended up having Germany defend Italy. I wanted your fight against Italy to actually be a fight against Germany, because Germany was better. And Italy can fall easily because Italy sucks. Even though I went heavy into like their infantry weapons, for example, and I had to go very focused on their tech. Look at the difference with tech here. You already looked at Germany's skill tree. Look at Italy's tech.
Yeah,
It's awful. Because they don't have MPPs, they're earning 100 a turn. They can't even reinforce their own fighting with the army they start with. So I knew Italy wouldn't stand a chance, as historically, and I didn't want to make that mistake. So I gave it to Germany to defend instead, and then that would keep Italy alive, and Italy's troops could just be elsewhere doing other things. Italy falls, oh well, you know, I could have held that easily, just with the mountains and stuff, like historical. That would have been no problem, really. I could have done that. But I figured, well, why bother at all if I can just dedicate all these Yugoslavian troops I got from our other deal to just sit here and be the initial defense, while then hopefully I can wipe this out enough so when it comes time to shift troops westwards for Italy or D-Day, whatever you go for first, I'll be ready. And I had already started shifting troops, as you could see. I added a corps here. I sent the bombers over here. I sent a fighter over here. The anti-air have been here for most of it. That was actually a viewer suggestion for saving MPPs during my PvE that I went with. The arty came from the event and the rockets were here. Not a lot's been shifted here, but like 2 corps, 2 bombers, a fighter at the very least.
Yeah, I do remember that anti-air definitely chewing up my strat bombers pretty well.
Oh yeah, it's been very nice. And now I have the fighters here as well. I expected you to go honestly heavier into the bombing. My idea was not to invest into the strategic bombing, the battle for Britain at all. I just ignored that completely. Britain was last. UK was last on my list of things to take over, essentially. So the Soviet front. So the Soviet front has been pretty interesting with the initial like stiff defense along the Dnieper here, and then, you know, my subsequent pushes. It was very hard for me to figure out how to split my units in general, and it went pretty well though. I was very surprised to see that you had such little actually defending the entrances to the Caucasus compared to everything else that you had.
In all honesty, it's because I couldn't move troops there because all the troops that were supposed to be there already died.
Because of the stiff defense, I assume, in the front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was mistake number 1.
That kind of played into my plans a little, too, of narrowing the front so I could chew up your troops. Then when you lined them all up in a static defense, I was like, oh, this is exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, I pretty much knew after you killed all those troops, it was over for the USSR anyway.
Like getting them back is really easy, and honestly, all the troops you start with should essentially be expected to die. That's the thing about the Soviets. You're not trying to win as the Soviets. You're trying to just throw all the MPPs everyone can send you at Germany to deal whatever damage you can and slow them down long enough for America's MPPs to wind up, get ready, so that you can then do a torch, open a front in Italy, whatever you can to distract Germany, essentially. Because look at how thin of a front it actually is. Like, I was afraid this whole time you would take these units and come down here. Look how little's defending over here.
I thought about it, but I would have thought they would just gotten killed anyway.
I would have had to move stuff, which would have made this less efficient. You can't really see it now, but I remember I had a very thin line of cores up front here after I stepped on this capital, because I just wanted to make it look like I had a huge force coming, even though my troops were very split up at the time, with like half of them being back here, only half of them, like the weaker half, being up front, coming from more like around the Stalingrad region. And I did a lot of these feints where I would send a bunch of units forward with absolutely no support and no guarding their rear, just to try to scare you into thinking something bigger was coming, so that you actually wouldn't advance, so that I could actually catch my units up without fighting for all this territory that I was going for.
At this point, I was more worried about advancing and then just playing right into your hand anyway.
Generally, I think if you advanced, that would be the last thing I would have wanted in pretty much every instance. Generally. What I wanted you to do was to stay still and let me kill you while I go for the capital. That's what I wanted the most. And thankfully, that is most of what you started doing as time went on. That was like your main strategy, actually, except for up here, which drew my attention and actually diverted some of Germany's resources into purchasing another garrison and at least one more corps, if not two, for Finland in order to defend against your advances here, which you almost killed one of them.
Yeah, and then of course I got a bad roll.
Yeah, as did I, trying to wipe out you over here, but that unit's dead now because you didn't reinforce him, which I found so interesting. But it was really kind of finally turning over here, you know, and I sent the Africa Field Artillery here. This was a pretty early decision. I was going to buy a heavy artillery to send, and then I got the Africa Corps. I was like, oh wait, this has an artillery. This is the worst artillery that can spawn for me. Sure, I'll send that somewhere to be disposable. But I kept the fighter upgraded the moment I could to defend against your air, and you did a lot of naval bombardment, which was a good indication to me that you didn't know how that actually worked.
Yeah, I would have thought it would have lowered the morale, but...
It can. It does. The main reason... It does lower readiness of morale, but the main thing it lowers really is supply. You would need constant bombardment to really just eat away at readiness and morale, and you can see some of my units here, like this corps. Look at its morale, it's 27%, 69%. It's got like 3 supply right now. Look at this one. The ones that are closer to the HQ are doing well. This is a little beyond me. Like, I pulled back behind Vipuri because I couldn't extend my supply that far. And I knew I needed to kind of bottle up, turtle up, to stop you when you started being aggressive over here. At any point, did you think of invading the Baltics?
Yes, but not like now. Like, I thought whenever I counter pushed and like, you know, I had you on the run, I wanted to use that as an encirclement.
That makes sense. Yeah, that would have been a good idea. Although my goal was entirely, my whole Germany strategy was to prevent you from ever getting a counter push. I put everything into this invasion, pretty much. I guess I kind of went like all in one with both. Like, Japan was like, only Australia matters. Also, I have to win China, I guess. And then Germany was only Russia matters, and then everything else will fall into place. And then Italy was survive. Survive. I know, since I'm pretty sure, do you believe that I would have successfully moved the Romanians and the approaching Hungarians through successfully with how much you see here? We got 2 cavalry corps, we got 2 armies, we got another corps, 2 more armies, another corps. These were going to be operated down there. I was just kind of securing things over here, like 2 HQs, like between the 2 of them, we got some fighters. Do you think that would have been enough to actually push down to Egypt?
I mean, I literally had nothing in your way besides a Jerusalem garrison. So yeah.
I thought you said you had stuff in Iraq.
I was bluffing.
Oh, funny. I knew you originally had Indians in Iraq, so I thought they would still be there. And that's what I expected to go up against. So this is why, so yeah, I was telling you, like, when you try to offer me that deal, I was like, I'm pretty sure this is going to be easy. So I don't see why I would stay out of here. Look at all these MPPs that are here. Plus, Iraq belongs to me because it's occupied for you. So that's only a good thing. This part of Iran would belong to me because you invaded it. This part wouldn't because it's UK technically, but there's no partisans, so I didn't have to worry about that. And so I was just going to blaze through here. And I was like, oh, and you're getting Saudi Arabia to join you. Perfect. More free MPPs for me that you have to spend hundreds of MPPs to get to join you. Like, this is going to be easy. That was my idea. And I was going to just push through. So I guess, yeah, you agree I would have done it. And then operate all the German air power here. I wanted to time it so the Soviets would have fallen right about then. And I think I would have succeeded in that. And then I was just going to tactically bomb all of this out of existence. While I push forward, maybe sends like a German tank or so.
Yeah, and that's why I'm surrendering now and not later.
Yeah, and then the Italians from that point onwards I assumed were going to have to respond to Operation Torch, and I see that I was essentially correct. Yeah, I just saw this sub recently too. I was like, ooh, this really confirmed for me that there was a torch coming. I was like, this wouldn't just be here, right?
It was mainly on Overwatch and getting, everything in position.
Yeah, I figured that was a torch. I figured I would have to move them, but I was hoping to actually be able to push you out and like hold you back here. I was going to use some German air to help if necessary. The coalition troops were going to be available to come here and then help Italy. And then I was going to have Italy after that, if successful, just spend the rest of the game pretty much dominating Africa, taking all your colonies away from you one by one. That was my plan with Italy. Except their navy. Their navy was then going to help with the invasion of the UK. That was different. Also, any special units I could get for them, like special forces and paratroopers. I was also planning to potentially, if necessary, like if you put up a stiff resistance here, I was going to invade from this side as well for India. But I had like 3 stages of this invasion. Stage 1 was push in with Japan and see how well that works. So I was going to assign like, 2 armies were going to kind of come over here. I was going to have like 2 armies pushing this way, 2 armies pushing that way, assign the other army to wherever needed help most, the paratrooper to help. I got all the air power here, the HQs are coming along, and I was going to push heavy into that. If that didn't work, which I was pretty sure that it would, that I was going to send German coalition troops down this southern side with HQ support, kind of using my logistics. And I should tell you something about the logistics soon, to push into Karachi and then up like that. And then if that didn't fully work either, I was going to invade Afghanistan.
That always works out well.
I was going to blitz through Afghanistan to move on Delhi through better supply lines. While also, I was definitely going to send all these Japs remaining down south and even invade through Nepal to get there as well. So I guess it was 4 stages of the invasion.
Yeah, I expected something coming from the northwest and definitely something from the west. But actually, I felt really confident in my defense of the east. Like everything you just explained of where you're going to put your troops, I had like 2 or more divisions in each one of those spots.
I was just hoping that like my MPP advantage over you and my tech advantage would have played its part here with all the bombing, kind of like it did with China. Even though India's not as much of a pushover as China, they technically earn less MPPs. And I really wanted these MPPs for Japan because, getting the rest of China's MPPs, getting India's, getting half of the Soviet Union, getting Australia, whatever else I could take. These islands aren't that important for MPPs. I thought that is what I needed to eventually get to the point where I could just focus everything on the naval stuff, on defending the Pacific, on fighting back in the Pacific. That was also crossing my fingers that you would split yourself kind of half and half with the Navy, which, you didn't. So maybe that would have been like not really a long-term thing that would have succeeded, but I really wanted those MPPs for Japan because 100 plus, that's a big thing right there, Yeah,
it's quite a bit.
I mean, for India, it's not quite a bit. But for Japan, who's working with 400 right now, has had 300 the whole game. That's a lot.
I mean, isn't the capital of Delhi alone worth like 40?
I can't really see. It's 2 MPPs per strength point. So if it has 10 strength points, it's 20. That's how that math kind of adds up. Speaking of logistics, have you noticed the way I've been able to fight in these low supply areas to kind of catch you off guard, like with Italy and even with China, and I'm sure there might be some others, maybe around even the Soviets as well. Have you noticed how I've managed my logistics? Have you picked up on what I do to actually fight in areas where you just don't have supply?
No, I was just having a stroke trying to figure out how it worked anyway.
So here's my strategy, because you'll see this in a guide anyway that I've explained if you ever play this game again. If you ever want to try the Axis. I take a primary HQ. That HQ goes on a town, for example, right? And then it could be like right here. I actually did this to actually push through the desert here, because otherwise this would have been impossible. This would have been impossible otherwise. So I put like one HQ on Siwa Oasis, and then that buffs up this supply to like 8. Then further down the line, if you put another HQ, it bounces the buffed supply. So it'll rebuff it and then bounce that even further. And I had all 4 HQs over here at one point. So I would bounce from like better supply, the supply up to the front by staggering my HQs like this. I learned this in the Axis PvP or PvE that I did just before this. I only learned it then, towards like the midway point or more than that, closer to the ending. And now I've made it my pretty much standard doctrine for any assault where I need supply and I need that advantage. You know how you're always talking like, man, you just keep killing all my units and there's nothing I can do. Well, you know, I don't have any supply. Part of that, and you can't really see it here because this is kind of a very rushed offensive that I'm going right now. I was rushing my units here, but that's how all of this went, especially over here. You know, I would set up a defense. I'd find like a really good supply point, put an HQ there, then bounce it somewhere further down the line, usually not on another town. And then I'd bounce the supply even further to keep the morale and readiness as high as possible, dedicating to every push no less than 2 HQs to make this work, and every defense as well, as you can see.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot more sense when you put it in perspective like that.
Yeah, I didn't know this during my ally playthrough. I didn't really need to know it. And I didn't know it for a lot of my Axis playthrough either. I just kind of learned it as I went through, and I was like, damn, this is really useful. This is how I can do really well. Because especially playing the allies, I did terribly going after this. It's so hard to fight over Ethiopia, but you do win eventually as the allies if you just keep trying. But I learned eventually that the HQs can work like that. I only had one over here, but it was a much smaller force, so I didn't expect them to need to go very far. This is just how I handled basically everything that needed supply. It was this 2 supply, or this 2 HQ like thing. There's very little examples of it on the map right now due to how this playthrough has gone recently, but that's been my main logistical strategy. Anywhere that needs logistics, that's what I did. Oh, I almost completely forgot, dude. So, how'd you feel about Peru?
I kind of stopped caring, to be honest. I mean, it was definitely out, you know, alt historical, but
I saw this going a couple ways. I was hoping to just draw your attention here and provoke an invasion. I guess that was not coming, but I did like it because of this mine. 10 MPPs from this every turn plus 5 from the capital. I think I purchased one of these units actually. I think it was it was the garrison. It was the garrison because I'm getting 15 MPPs from this per turn. Every 10 months, that's 150. That's the price of a core. So I actually went ahead and bought the garrison, upgraded the core to keep it defended because I thought that would actually be really useful. Because then that's 180 every year, 180 MPPs every year. And I got this at what, like 40, 41? And I figured, 5-6 years of 180, that's a lot of MPPs. That's multiple carriers, for example, right there. That's how I measure expensive things, by carriers. And I figured it would cost you MPPs then to then even invade it. And by the time you would ever get a chance to invade it, it would have paid itself off to me, the investment it took to actually take this, like 100 MPPs, if even that, 120. And so I figured if you ever got anything around here and you did an invasion or if you did a landing, it would just be totally worth it for distracting you. And if you didn't invade it, it would still be worth it because I would be getting the MPPs that were very much worth it, and that's kind of why I went for this. Also, I fully expected you to do what you did with Argentina and do the ahistorical like support of the government so that they don't lean towards me, which is smart, because if you didn't, I probably would have planned on getting them to join me, and I could have procced Chile to do so as well with that event, I learned. And so I would have had this line of these 3 countries, and if you gave me that, I was going to use it as a front.
Yeah, I did not plan on you having Argentina at all. I wanted that for myself.
Yeah, which you didn't really get it, but you did stop me from getting it.
Yeah.
But if you didn't do it, I would have gotten both of these, and buddy, you would have believed Brazil was going to be invaded. You better believe it. If I had all of this, Brazil would have been invaded. I would have conquered South America, or tried to at the very least, and thus gotten you to assign troops down here and away from the Pacific. The idea was that would be a good way for Germany to actually assist Japan, but it didn't really come to that. Instead, I was just going to focus them eventually on this as the end goal. Now, since we'll never get there, you do believe I would have taken Egypt. You do believe this, and that would have happened. You had plans to invade the DEI, etc. coming, but you were going to stage all of that like out of Australia. But how successful do you think that would have been now that Australia had fallen, to bring us back to current events?
To take over the DEI after Australia has fallen? Near impossible, because I wouldn't have a base. I mean, maybe I can use
Moresby.
India. Oh, well, yeah. But that I was waiting in the Allies.
Oh, it's not? What the fuck?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of expecting, for you to attack them.
Why is that not in the war?
Yeah, not gonna lie, that kind of triggered me when
I've
I saw it.
never seen that. I thought they were in the war this whole time. I was even talking about maybe I should invade them. Which reminds me, you pointed out that Germany is not at war with America. Another thing I did not notice at all. Is Italy? No, neither is Italy. That's so funny, dude.
Yeah, it's just Japan and
I had no idea, dude. I don't know what we did differently to avoid those scripts from firing. And especially, it didn't even bring in New Guinea. That's very interesting to me. I had no idea that all this stuff had happened. And wow, okay. Well, that answers that. Yeah, I did not notice that. I don't know if I would have noticed those things eventually. You motherfucker, you stopped some scripts from going off by sending your Malayans over here, you piece of shit. I know they're dead now, but this would have been automatically annexed if you didn't do that.
Womp womp.
And that pissed me off so much, because I wanted these MPPs, but I was getting ready to actually go do that with these very shortly. Fine. Once I saw that your zone of control ownership went away, when I took this, I was like, oh yes, they're dead. I was going to do the invasion very shortly, but I needed to prioritize Australia, which I did. So what actually remained to defend Australia once all these Australians disappear that I can't see? I know you had MacArthur up here.
Yes, and 2 other American corps.
Yep. That's it?
And that's it, yeah. And a British African Air Force fighter.
Ah, yes.
Somewhere.
Yes. And I think you got your... So, did you know this invasion was coming when it was? Like, I know you knew it was coming eventually, but did you realize that it was literally 1 turn from happening?
I saw the cruiser, actually, the one closest to Rockhampton. Well, only one of those cruisers. And I thought you were just doing what I do and kind of just patrolling my coast to see if you can kill something.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I did not know your whole fleet was there. I thought, again, that was still in Guadalcanal.
No, it was all here, and I had it was in a really neat formation where the carriers and the transports were all bottled up, except for the 3 that were up here. I rushed it, so not all of my transports were even up front. I just rushed it more and more. Was this moved here last turn, this maritime bomber?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so, man. Because I got lucky to see it through this, and I was like, I think he just moved it here. And to me, in my head, that was proof that you thought that you knew that my whole fleet was here. That was what I took from that.
And that naval bomber is actually almost like upgraded to the max, or at least it's, you know,
I didn't expect it to do very much with all my carrier elite fighters here, by the way. But I wasn't going to linger. I only moved far enough to kill your Australian thing right here because I wanted to be able to control this port. Because I was going to land here until I saw this was here. I was like, oh, fuck. And by the way, seeing that this was here, if I remember correctly, is what encouraged me to just try to go for Canberra directly.
Yeah, I would have thought that the mountains and everything in the way would have made it impossible to do it all in one turn. But
this is what happened. I force sailed from up here after getting your sub out of my way. Right here, landed. I was right next to it immediately. So I just moved to the side so I could get a blitz attack on your fighter, which was only at 5 strength, and then killed it. And then I landed another one. And when you land, I can still move once. So I landed because it's only 1 hex away, and then I just stepped on the capital, and I was like, oh shit, I did it. Well, I guess this was unnecessary, huh? And I was like, I still did more over there.
How much action points do you keep after doing a naval invasion?
It might depend if you do like a force sail or like just a normal movement, but I only had enough to like move once, I think, and then attack once, essentially. Okay. That's all I could really do. But yeah, that's what I did. And that's when I decided to go just tell you like, yo dog, so you want to make a deal? Because I was perfectly content with just operating on the rail line because I knew where your troops were already. I knew MacArthur was up here. I knew I could intercept him. I knew that this was here. I didn't know if anything else was present, but I knew I could figure it out because any of your troops remaining would have claimed the territory then. I would see exactly where they were. So I was going to either kill them, but I was like, maybe I can get something out of this. So I never actually got to tell you the deal because you just immediately surrendered. But here's what I was hoping to get, right? I was like, all right, bro, I'll let you get MacArthur, any other troops out of here because they wouldn't be able to operate. So I would just let them go. Any ships, you know, I'll give them a path and they'll live. And in return, right, while they're clearing out, which I assume would kind of be like a 6-month period for them to really get to safety proper. I imagine them like kind of going this way. Or maybe 4 month, something like that. That we would keep this region neutral, essentially. No more fighting till you get your troops out. And I was going to say, get the fuck off these islands.
You really cared about that island, didn't you?
It annoyed me because I was 1 turn away, man. And again, if you watch the, which, you know, you're going to be watching the playthrough back.
Yeah.
I've been struggling. I've been saying like every turn, oh, I gotta get a core out here. I gotta get some cores out here. And then I keep getting distracted by China. I gotta get some cores out here. Oh, but in China, oh, I gotta get some cores out here. I would have done China so much differently. Winning this fast was not worth it. It really wasn't. It just gave me more problems. Now, naturally, you surrendered, so obviously you weren't going to take that deal. But did that sound like a fair deal for saving MacArthur and not getting rained hell upon by my fleet in the area? And having everything slaughtered?
I guess so. Honestly, MacArthur was only like a rank like 5 or 6 general. I was actually kind of really disappointed with how shit he kind of was.
Did you have command and control upgraded?
I had it on 1, I believe.
He'll get a point per level.
Oh, okay.
He'll get a point per level, essentially. I didn't know anything about you having a massive fleet here, coming down here, so I was going to make that deal without that knowledge, but...
Yeah, whenever we get past this, I'll take a screenshot of that and send it to you.
Yeah, maybe I'll slip that into the video.
Yeah.
So, assuming you didn't surrender, would that have sounded like a fair deal?
Yeah.
Cool, because that's exactly what I was hoping for, because then I would have had, like, Australia, I would have gotten those fucking islands back. I was like, I'll have to spend MPPs to get them back anyway, so I'm sure he'll be happy with that. But that was assuming you were aware how much less I earned than you, which you really weren't until I literally just showed you the graph for me, even though you could see the same graph. And I was hoping that would have given me time to like set up my defenses better. I had more stuff. All this stuff would have been defended then, because I have it all in motion right now. And so it all would have been defended by the end of that little ceasefire. And then I was going to prepare like my other things, you know, I was going to dive bomb onto these. And then I was going to go for New Zealand as well, while getting less special forces, more armies style stuff down into Australia, then going into, you know, India. And then I was going to prepare just the big defense against you, which, you know, I was just going to spend tons and tons of money on defense at that point. I didn't really see the need to jump for any more islands after that. So it's just all defense, defense, defense while pushing slowly into India. And that's where I was going to go with that. And I think if I had been allowed to do that, actually, if like you would have accepted that instead of surrendering, for example, and this kept going, I think that would have given me exactly what I wanted of what I mentioned earlier, of being able to set up the defense and then just try to take India for the MPPs, get half of the Soviet Union, and then just try to hold you while Germany prepared for the UK. But I don't know, you could have done some massive invasion somewhere that threw me off, like you were planning in Thailand, for example.
Yeah.
Who was gonna land, by the way? Was that gonna be Indians?
Yeah, there was a special forces, either UK proper or Indian, and then there was, actually, I think there was 2 special forces. One was UK and one was Indian.
I was gonna say, like, if this relied on Indians, I don't have any faith that you would have accomplished a lot. Because it would have stretched their MPPs way too thin. Way too thin.
To be fair, it was really only 2 cores. The whole plan was just to distract you and get
just
your eyes
cores, that's it?
Well, no, it's 2 special forces.
Okay, yeah. I was kind of prepared in my head for that. I kind of had that thought through. At one point, you know, I was considering a massive naval invasion of India at one point after Australia, but I kind of threw that plan away. I was like, I don't need that because Germany, also China, like this progress.
Yeah.
You know, like beyond Lanchao, like this is actually worth like 75-ish MPPs. It's actually not bad.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually pretty good. I was surprised. I was like, no wonder China can stay a nuisance in the late game.
I literally did not have enough money to even like repair stuff fully at that point.
Yeah.
So I didn't really see much of those MPPs.
So I want to ask about a couple of your decisions of like your diplomacy. I know you were trying to get Turkey to join you for a little bit. Did you give up on that?
For now, but I did plan to revisit that.
That would have been good for you for a long while, but I think from this point onwards, it would have been bad.
Yeah.
Because it would have just been free shit for me at this point. Well, not free, because they do spawn with a decent starting army. They do.
I also didn't know they would have gone to the USSR, which I don't know how that would have worked if the USSR surrendered. But
well, they would have gone to the USSR.
For some reason, yes.
Interesting. I didn't know that. And then... Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm saying, to me, that still don't really make too much sense, but yeah.
It's probably a good thing, realistically.
Yeah.
And then our deals were about to expire. All of our deals about Norway, Sweden, and Greece. Greece didn't really matter. We just determined that to be neutral until 43, but were you planning on opening this up as a front?
I mean, I didn't rule it out, but it definitely was not on the top of my planning list.
Mm-hmm. And then what about these? Were you planning on renewing these?
No, definitely not Norway. I planned on either raiding that or sending Americans to navally invade Oslo.
You were gonna invade Norway?
Yeah.
Wow. That's funny. I was really hoping you would renew this. This was a very short-sighted deal that I intentionally made, knowing it was short-sighted, to get as many MPPs early on at the downside of potentially less chance of holding this in the later part. So that was kind of intentional. I was planning on, like, if you did make any moves over here, I was going to try to help out with, like, the Finns at that point. I was going to try to redistribute the Finns to defend this area if necessary, if needed.
Yeah, I eventually realized that deal with Norway was a very noob mistake and didn't benefit me at all, so I wanted to
I think it did benefit you quite a bit, actually. Like, your fucking blockade here would have been impossible if I took Norway.
Yeah, but by that point, the sub's already done so much damage anyway.
You have no idea how much damage you prevented by putting these here. You really have no idea how bad that blockade was on me. You'll just have to see it in the playthrough. It seems like a new mistake with your information and the fact that we're kind of past that phase now. But that blockade really fucked with my capacity to actually raid you fully. Like, I was operating at like half or less capacity this whole time in what I wanted to do.
did you actually plan on attacking that blockade at some point?
Yes, that's why this fighter's here. I got a maritime bomber coming here that was going to go there to try to stop anything. I got the medium bombers here. It's just, I couldn't really take my attention off the Soviets because, again, I was all in on the Soviets. And I was not prepared for this kind of a blockade. So this deal really helped you with that. Like, if I could have just sent some medium bombers up here, that would have been great. Because this aside, one of the main things I wanted to raid was UK-USSR line. I really haven't been able to do that very much.
Actually, that alone is kind of fake. I literally have like one chit going to the USSR, so it's there just to get your subs to move up there.
Yeah, I didn't really care how much you sent, because so long as I got kind of the max value that I could take, then I was happy. So it didn't really matter. If you put nothing in there, that would have been better, because then you could have focused your like defenses in one place. Yeah.
And by the way, you telling me that subs had limited ammo, that's what sparked me to do the blockade. Because I'm like, wait a minute, I can just block his ports.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I've been teaching you mechanics as we went through this. Yeah. Yeah, the supply, I have to constantly go back to resupply. And that's been fucking with me. So recently, I've been so fucked up. I've been operating like not even at like 10 for most of these. Like there's one down here that's at 6. I've been fixing it now, but I've been having to operate out of like these Spanish bases that they grant me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like right here, Las Palmas and Vigo. These were granted to me. This is what I was down to at this point, because I couldn't access this. I had a submarine that was trapped here for the better part of a year that I couldn't find a fucking way out. And yeah, I didn't have any good ports to resupply. So you got this one over here at 8 that's just marching out to start raiding because it didn't have any chance to really resupply or anything.
So I guess my blockade was very successful.
It was very successful. It's hard to tell, right? Because just like me, you're working with too little information. But, you know, I maybe I'm a little more analytical, that I can kind of guess my successes a little bit better, even when I'm trying to guess what you have or not. But this was very successful. A lot of things you did were very successful. You just don't know it yet, because you aren't guessing how badly it affected me. But you'll see it when you watch back the playthrough, which, by the way, as of recording this, which we're just about done, this is a very long summit, because we're just talking about literally everything. But just about right now, where the heck is my... yeah. So right about now, publicly published, we are up to episode 12 just released. No, 13. Yeah. And members only is up to 21. And this will essentially be this 70-second video. That's a weird word.
Yeah, nice and even.
Yeah, this is like 70-second video right here. So that's kind of where we are. That's how far away we are. But I'm gonna speed up the releasing of this a little bit, starting in like late August. It's currently mid-July. And when the hell did we start this playthrough, man?
September-ish.
Really? In real life, September-ish? Damn.
Maybe mid-October.
It's been like a year. That's it's been such a long playthrough. But I don't really have anything else to ask or talk about. Did you have anything on your side you wanted to mention that I didn't kind of get to, or you wanted to ask about?
Nah, we already discussed some of the deals I wanted to mention.
Okay, well, if that's it, then that's it. Well, sir, it was a good playthrough. You put up a good fight. I just have one final question. If we continued going, what do you think the ending victory condition would have been?
Stalemate.
Really? You think it would have been not even a decisive or a tactical victory for me?
I mean, maybe, but I don't know. I feel like maybe for stalemate, do I have to get Moscow back?
Well, remember, the tactical victory is, it's that no other conditions. I think the stalemate is that no conditions are met at all. Tactical victory is that I own my major capitals. So it's easy for me to get the tactical victory if I just hold my capitals, essentially. Because you could own most of everything. So long as I still own Berlin, I get a tactical victory.
In that case, then yeah. Because I honestly feel like I definitely would have held the UK. Because I would have got my research back on track, I would have had a huge clump of American troops like in the UK, also counting British divisions with that. I feel like I definitely would have held London.
I believe that there is a sizable chance, especially knowing you would have gone through with this deal, that I think there was a sizable chance that I would have gotten a decisive victory. I'm pretty like 50-50 on it, but I think there's a sizable chance I could have gotten it. Because Egypt was in the bag, USSR was in the bag, China was done, everything was done. You know, India was, I don't think you could have really held that. You would have had to do it at the expense of something else, but still I could have just put more troops there. I believe that I could have gotten a decisive victory. I think it's 50-50. It depends how that invasion plan I told you would have went. But by that point, I planned for having 3 years to pull it off. 44 through 47.
And I also would have had 3 years to completely catch up on research and also stack troops.
But with Germany, I had so many land troops, I thought, you know what? I can defend everything. I have enough. Once the Soviets are dead, I can defend literally everything. Italy doesn't really matter. Nothing is going to matter in Africa except Egypt. If I just put everything there, then I think I can do it. It's really hard to say. It's why I went for Australia first, because some of these naval invasions for the Axis are like, well, you do them early or you don't do them at all. But if anyone could have done a late one, I think it would have been Germany, because they would have rivaled America at that point. More than that, I think by that point, like taking the USSR, even splitting it, owning the Middle East with Germany ownership, and then maybe even going for a couple of other things with everything they already had, they really wouldn't have needed any more land troops at all. I would have had with Germany, I think, especially if you started bringing in more nations and then I took them, or I maybe invaded Spain or something. I don't know. I would have had enough MPPs to equal America and the UK as Germany alone. And because of that, you know, this is my strategic mind at work. I did the math. Because of that, if assuming I didn't even surpass you, maybe I could have surpassed you with MPPs. I think I would have had the MPPs to make this work. Because America has to project everything over here. The actual local defending MPPs are what, like 300? And they would have gotten worse losing stuff over here, you know? Actually, yeah, that's true. A lot of these MPPs would have came from the UK. So they're like 300 so right now, you know? They would have been down to maybe like 200 or less by that point.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about it, you probably would have gotten the total victory.
So I think a major victory was guaranteed at this point, especially if you went with this deal, for me. But I think there was a pretty decent chance at a decisive victory with the way money was going. Because I've told you about this like the entire playthrough, and these are what all my predictions are kind of based on, is money. How important MPPs are. Like me saying you stand a better chance than you think you do. Why? Because of money. Because I know you'll have this much money, and we have the examples of that really kicking into gear now as you reach the heights that I was terrified of. And so far, I think all my predictions about how money would affect things were pretty accurate. So that is my prediction. But yeah, that is our whole playthrough.
Yes, sir.
And do you think you would ever want to play the Axis in this game?
Maybe, but it would definitely be some time from now.
Understandable. And we'll be posting Victoria 3 things in the meantime.
Hell yeah.
All right. Fun playthrough. I had fun. That was absolutely nerve-wracking, especially the invasion of Australia. Dude, I was so nervous. I can't wait till you see that in the video. That is the longest episode. The longest summit is probably gonna be like an hour once I edit it down to straight talking for all the viewers. We've had some pretty dedicated viewers watching everything and commenting on everything. Hope you have enjoyed this. Hope this is a happy ending. Have a good day, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.